Welcome to the Podium Athlete, the show where we bring together elite athletes and coaches from around the world to discuss youth sports, mindset, training, and the pursuit of reaching the podium. I'm your host, Chris Fote, a three-time Olympian and the current head coach of the USA bobsled team. Today's guest is Emerson Geilman, Utah's 2025 High School Athlete of the Year. Emerson led his team to a state title in football, all while maintaining a 4.0 GPA, earning his Eagle Scout Award, and being on the Honor Society. Now he is gearing up for his freshman year at BYU, and I have a feeling this is just the beginning of great things for him. Emerson, talk to us a little bit about what the transition has been like your first 2 months down there as you transition from high school athlete to a college athlete.
Yeah, it's been awesome. It's crazy. It happens so fast. Like 1 week I'm in high school and going to classes, and then I graduate, and then like 3 days later I moved out down to Provo, and but I've been loving it. It's been awesome just to really these last 2 months really just focus on developing and growing and kind of limit distractions. And right now it's lots of workouts and training, and then from there get home to my apartment and really focus on dialing in my nutrition and studying film.
Okay.
But it's been awesome.
That's a good point. What has your training been like? So right now you're just doing the conditioning portion, correct?
Yeah. Okay. Lots of summer workouts, and then we also have some player run practices and lots of meetings. Okay,
so what's that breakdown? Do you sprint? Do you do conditioning once or twice a week, 3 or 4 times? Do you lift 3 or 4 times? Kind of give us a breakdown of what the normal week looks like for you.
Yeah, the strength staff does a phenomenal job. It's unreal. They're so scientific about everything. So Monday, Tuesday, we come in and we do speed work for an hour, very intentional, like different acceleration and max speed stuff, and then we'll lift for an hour. And then Wednesday's our recovery day, and then Thursday, Friday are more of conditioning. We do some speed work and explosiveness, but then some more just like conditioning and mental toughness stuff, as well as an hour-long lift. But they're intense, but they're very focused, and they're very smart about and intentional about everything we do. So,
well, and that kind of leads me to my next question. What have you noticed the change in resources from high school to college, especially a school that you're currently down there in Provo? What have been some of the biggest helps from those additional resources that you have seen that have helped your workouts?
Yeah, I think from an equipment standpoint, BYU has the best of the best, but especially I think the biggest difference would be the recovery and nutrition aspect of things. Like in high school, you're kind of on your own, and you kind of want to be smart with that stuff, but it's such a important part of what we do, and you can only, like, it's all about staying healthy in college and putting your body in a situation to perform, but maintain that and be consistent. And so the recovery has been phenomenal. There's so many things we do that keep us our mobility and just our good health. And then nutritionally, like, they have it all dialed down to what kind of weight they want you to have, where you're trying to progress. And that's been huge as well. Okay.
So for recovery, I think that's a huge part. Now, sometimes as a kid, especially in youth sports, you're 10, 12, you are invincible and almost indestructible. I remember playing multiple sports, going from one practice to the next practice, doing a game, and coming home with my friends and playing until 8 at night or 9 o'clock at night. What kind of modalities or what kind of things, equipment or things do they have you doing down there that kind of help with your recovery?
Yeah, I totally agree. Like when I was little, I didn't ever have to warm up throwing. I could just go out and throw all day and feel totally fine. And now, like, I think as you get stronger and faster, like, your body just goes through a lot more. So like every day, the quarterbacks specifically, because of we're throwing so much, we have to be very smart about our arms, and they do such a great job with making sure we're, as part of our workouts every day, incorporating good mobility and functional things that will protect us so we can play at a high level the whole season. But then following practices, going to the training room and do contrast therapy, getting scraping on anything that's sore, massages, and then as well as they have like these rapid reboot sleeves that you put on your legs and arms that you can, if you're feeling sore or anything, you can do that. And but I think it's really just about staying ahead of the curve and doing it the right way so you don't get behind with injuries. And if you can take care of your body while you're not injured, then hopefully you can prevent having those injuries.
No, and that's a great point. And again, I don't expect every high school to have a sports psych. Every high school is not going to have a nutritionist. Every high school is not going to have a speed coach and a strength coach and all these things that you have. But I do think recovery is something that I overlooked a lot. Again, I would go to the training room when I got hurt, when I pulled a hamstring, or I got shin splints, something like that. I would treat it after it happened. So outside of some of the higher end equipment that they have, what are some things, now that you know what recovery looks like at more professional level, what are some things you could have done better in high school that would have kept you a little more fresh?
I think especially from a quarterback perspective, just the mobility of your arm and upper half. Like, I had to gain a lot of weight in high school, and so I was always naturally a skinny kid, and so I just did tons of lifting, and which is great. But you have to make sure that you do it smart, and I did a good job with it. But it's just crazy how much emphasis is, like, that's the name of the game for quarterbacks, especially, is maintaining that mobility up on your upper half and keeping it all functional and ready to perform.
Yeah. And we'll come back and talk about it. I think it's also an important part is, every sport, the body requirement is different. There's some sports where you need to gain weight, some sports where you need to, lose weight. So I definitely want to come back and hit that a little bit later. But what I want to jump to now, and one of the things about this podcast that I started it was I really want coaches, parents, and athletes to hear stories, mindset, and technique from elite athletes across the country, and to really help them learn things they may not have known from their coach in high school or their strength coaches. Nothing against high school coaches. There were some phenomenal high school coaches, phenomenal strength coaches, but also it is different at the elite level. So that's part of the reason why I want to do this. So I want to jump back into your childhood for a bit. So what age and what sports did you kind of start playing, growing up?
Yeah, from a very young age, I just loved all kinds of sports. I mean, I just would spend hours every day shooting hoops in the driveway or playing whatever random sport it was in our yard. And all through elementary school, I played soccer and basketball, and I loved football. I wasn't allowed to play until 6th grade. My mom was a little worried about injuries, so I wasn't allowed to play tackle football until 6th grade. But I loved all sports and spent just so many hours with my older brother making up random games with football or basketball or whatever it may be.
Okay. And then I guess at what age did you begin to kind of drop some sports off your list and get more specific? 'Cause I'm a huge advocate, especially younger kids, ages 5 to 10, of playing multiple sports, learning what they're good at, and learning just the coordination, because the coordination required for soccer is different than playing basketball or even baseball. So I think it's good to get a broader range and a really good base as an athlete younger, but I fully understand and acknowledge eventually you will likely have to specialize and choose 1-2 sports through high school, because high school sports is very competitive, especially if you're in a 4A, 5A or a larger type school. You need to be one of the top 5 to 8 athletes in your school. So I think that's very important. So at what age did you kind of start to narrow in on the sports that you chose through, high school?
Yeah, especially nowadays, like, people are trying to get kids specialized so early, and I 100% agree with you. It like, for me, my athleticism is definitely owed to me playing so many different sports and not specializing young. But when I was in 5th grade, I started really focusing on playing more competitive basketball, and basketball was my favorite sport at the time. But then once I got into high school, I really just started loving football, and I felt like that was kind of my thing, and all my time was spent watching YouTube videos and just random stuff, trying to figure out how I can play college football. And but yeah, I played basketball all through high school. I wanted to give my body a break. Our head coach at Bountiful did a phenomenal job of really promoting multi-sport athletes. And
really?
A lot of people say that, but it's the few coaches actually make it
do it. Yeah,
make it workable for the athletes. And he pushed me really hard every off season. The season would finish and I would be ready to go start training immediately after the season ended and get back on the saddle. But he's like, no, like, take a break. Like, especially as I got older after my junior year, he was like, no, like, I really want you to play basketball just to get your mind off of football and get your body, different muscles going, and which I think is very valuable. And another point he's huge on is, like, if you can put yourself in athletic scenarios, like with high pressure, if you're playing in the state playoffs in basketball, there's no way that doesn't translate when you're playing a big time football game with a big atmosphere, and you've been in those type of crunch time scenarios before, out of your comfort zone. And I think no matter what sport it is, that it translates.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's one good thing about sports is obviously it teaches you how to win and it teaches you how to push through some things. But I think it also allows you to become a better leader, learn how to emotionally regulate, because there's games that you lose and there's games you win. It also helps you to make friends, because in sports, especially a sport like a baseball, for example, you spend a lot of time in the dugout just hanging out with people, talking. So I think it's just great for kids, keeps them active. It gives them a friend group to have. So that's awesome that you did a lot of sports through high school. With that, I guess, was there ever a moment growing up where maybe you wanted to quit sports, or a moment that was harder on you that made you kind of question your decision to play sports or what sports you were involved in?
Yeah, definitely. When I was younger in like junior high, I was a late bloomer, even in high school, but I was never the starting quarterback on the A team or the B team. I was on the B team my first 2 years playing football. And then my 8th grade year, I was the backup quarterback on our little league team, and I barely saw the field the whole year. And I felt like I was good enough, but just wasn't quite I don't know if I was quite ready, or it was a very run heavy offense, and I wanted to throw the ball. But it was a big learning experience for me, just being patient, and because I'd worked so hard going into my 8th grade year to play, but I didn't even like really see any of those results like come out on the field necessarily. And it was always like, man, like I always kind of looked at it one step at a time. Like I wasn't thinking about succeeding at a varsity level at that point. I was just thinking of how can I start for my age group? Yeah. And then from there was how can I start as a junior in high school? Yeah. And then how can I exceed, like just one step at a time? Cause it's so overwhelming, especially at that point in my life, to be like, oh my gosh, like I'm far away from where I want to be or where I think I should be.
No, and I love what you just said. I think I see it with my son who's 10. He sees the college players, the pro players, and he just assumes they just woke up one day and they were great. And they were just always, they were the top guys when they were 5 years old, top guys when they were 8, top guys when they were 12. And the more that I've been around Olympic and professional athletes, I hear that same story is, when I was in 5th grade, 8th grade, I wasn't the starter. I wasn't that guy on the team that carried the team and was the best player at that time. So I think it's important to kids to stick with it to an extent and just keep trying, because you never know what'll pan out. Again, we'll keep going down into your story. You became a very successful high school quarterback and now playing at the college level. I want to kind of jump back though during that time in 8th grade, I kind of had the same experience. I'll talk about mine here in a second, but how important were your parents or your support system, whether it's your friends, your parents, or your coaches, to keep you motivated as other kids hit puberty and other kids are 3-4 inches taller than you? How did you stay motivated to want to go to practice where you're one of the smaller kids, you're not playing, you're getting, in those tackle drills, you're getting just crushed? Who or what community kind of helped you persevere and stay motivated?
Yeah, there's so many people I could talk about, and my whole high school coaching staff for football was phenomenal, and they always just believed in me so much. And I still have memories of being like a sophomore or a freshman, hearing them say things about, like I remember one time I was talking to one of our coaches, Coach Mo, and he said some comment. I was like, man, like, you know that play? It was some college player that he knew personally. I was like, you know him? And he's like, I'm like, that's crazy. And he was like, don't worry, one day when you're playing at BYU, you'll know them all too. And I was like, at that point, I was like, I can't believe he just said that, because I'm not even I'm the JV quarterback, but I remembered that, and I just remembered that belief. And I remember my grandpa gave me a book to read on the 49ers, on Bill Walsh, when I was around that age, and it's about like how the wins take care of themselves, and how like you should never be thinking, it's all about your process. Is my process good enough to deserve results, and not to worry about the results, but like if you really do trust like the work you're putting in, and if you're training the way you should be, then you shouldn't be worried about what's going on right now. You got to just stick to that and make adjustments to your routine and your habits. But that's what's going to drive success over the course of several years. And because like there's so many talented kids out there, but are you on a path with your habits and your behavior that's going to dictate success like 3 years from now or 4 years if you keep doing that same thing? And that was huge for me.
That's good. I love what you said about your coach, because junior high school is hard enough as a kid, a child, whether you're male or female, you're going through puberty. Everyone's trying to be friends and trying to being the popular kid in school, and it's hard to have confidence. What I've seen, and I've seen this with so many athletes, with my own kids, and I still coach some youth sports on the side, and just it's the balance as a coach. I challenge coaches out there. You can be hard on kids. You can demand a lot from kids. The process needs to be in place, and your expectations can be high. But I think balancing being hard, but also encouraging, not being soft, because I'm not very soft on my current athletes on the USA bobsled team or the youth athletes that I coach, but just being encouraging. Mistakes happen, and given that perspective that even professional baseball players, if they get a base hit a third of the time, they're very successful in their sport. In basketball, if you can make 35% of your threes, you're successful. So when you miss one shot, two shots, even have a bad game, maybe you miss 8 shots straight, don't be too hard on them. Keep that belief, because you never know what kid on your team, especially 5th grade, 8th grade, your sophomore year, who's going to grow and develop and become that really good athlete.
Yeah, I love that. Like a year ago, I remember listening to a podcast from Bronco Mendenhall, and he said the greatest gift you can give someone is like high expectations. And my parents have been such a great example of that, like of not like being like, it's a great balance, but they know what's the best of me, and they know what's best for me, and they expect the best of me, my best effort. And only you know if you're giving your best. And if you look yourself in the mirror at night and you can look yourself in the eye and you know you're doing everything you can with high expectations, then you know you're on the right path.
Yeah. And so, Emerson, for full transparency, you're the youngest person I've had on my podcast up to date. But the reason I wanted you on, I met you briefly at the Utah State of Sport Awards back in April, where you received the Male High School Athlete of the Year. And I was very impressed just the way that you carried yourself, and had a chance to meet your parents too. And obviously your athletic accomplishments speak for themselves, and you had a very successful athletic career, and I want to talk about that. But before we do that, you also had a 4.0 GPA through high school. You were on the National Honor Society. I saw something about an AP award or something. I wasn't that smart, so I don't even know what that means. But I also saw you were a Eagle Scout as well. Mm-hmm. So what has allowed you to be so consistent and disciplined in your life to balance not only athletics, but it sounds like you've done some great work in the community with scouting. You've done some great work in school by maintaining a 4.0 GPA. So I guess what motivates you to keep that balance and not just be a good athlete, but be a good person and do a lot more? Yeah,
I think I owe like so much of it to just like my parents and the people around me pushing me and believing in me, like we've talked about. I think also I've been blessed a lot and received a lot of strength from my religious convictions as well, and that's always helped me to stay grounded and try and keep the most important things in my life at the center. And I think that's the key. It's like if you're putting in your big priorities first, then it's going to turn out just fine. And I've been very fortunate that way. And I think through school, I've kind of like we talked about, like my parents always had high expectations for me. They never like wanted me to be perfect, but they always knew like if you are giving it your full effort, then things will go well. And there were times in school where I'd be really stressed about tests and stuff. And a lot of times it was because I was procrastinating and it was controllable things that I could fix through effort. And so they always helped me. And there was a few times where I was up super late at night. Like I remember so many nights studying until 1 a.m. for a test and then waking up at 6 to finish studying. And then I had practice that afternoon. And so there's definitely a grind at times, but I think I was given so much strength from those around me and that perspective and like a belief and not a demand for perfection, but a belief in doing your best and giving it your all.
No, I think that's really important because again, perfection never happens. Every athlete has lost a match. There's shots that they missed every day. They take vacations too. I think that's important to have that balance in their downtime. But I did think it was very impressive when they kind of read your accolades at that event, just how well you did in school, in the community, and then in sports. So let's jump into your high school athletic career. So again, you grew up playing baseball, soccer, football. You played a lot of different sports. At what point did you make the decision? Because you're a good athlete. I'm I'm assuming you were good at all of those sports, but again, you can't do 4, 5, 8 sports in high school. How did you narrow it down to the 2 that you chose? And who did you have that conversation with?
Well, I think it kind of came down to, I want to leave no unchecked boxes with football. I love football so much. And if I wanted to be great, like I feel like the secret to being great at something, like a lot of things need to go your way, but if you put in the work and the effort and the time, that it will take care of itself. And so I knew like I didn't want to play a spring sport because I needed that time to train and work on my throwing motion and my athleticism, getting faster, bigger, smarter. And so like it was a balance of, I'm going to specialize in football and spend my off season working really hard in football, while also staying well-rounded and playing basketball. But even during basketball season, it was hard at times because I'd be waking up at like 5 a.m. to go to the gym on like a game day. Wow. And I would hurry home after school to nap and drink a bunch of food so my body would be fine for the game. But it was always in the back of my mind, like football is my passion and I want to be using this time. I don't want to be wasted. I only have a few years here of high school and I need to make sure I'm doing everything I can to make sure when I look back, I'm not like, oh man, like I could have done a little bit more. Like I wish I could have changed, because you can never go back. You only get one shot at it. So
that's a good point. So you make it into high school and you clearly improved after 8th grade. So when did you become the starting quarterback of your high school?
Yeah, so my older brother was the starting quarterback my freshman and sophomore year.
So you're trying to beat him out of that spot, huh?
Well, it was such a blessing for me because I was able to have such a close look at what it was like for him, and I was able to learn so much without even playing. It was kind of funny, my sophomore year, my brother never lost a region football game in high school. Like we went undefeated region champs both years, but we won by like a touchdown every game. And so they were all so close. And so I never even got into a game until my junior year of varsity. But I remember learning so much and the highs and the lows and seeing what I like in my mind, like, oh, like I wish like they'd done that differently. And it was huge for me. Like, even though I only started for 2 years, I had really 4 years of the closest, like the best view to see like what it takes and what I need to be doing from a leadership standpoint and, to make sure we can excel.
Well, that's a really good point. I don't think we talk enough about that. And there's not a lot of mentoring that goes on, I think, in high school sports, but you see it in the NFL. Some of the most successful quarterbacks like the Tom Bradys who get into the league. Aaron Rodgers is another great example, who don't get the starting role right away, but they're able to kind of get their feet wet and learn how to lead peers and learn how to lead a team and learn what right looks like. And I think that's important. I think that's great that you obviously had that close-knit relationship with your brother, and so you got to observe that firsthand. So you do take the reins your junior year, and from what I read, you guys made it to the state championship. Is that right?
That's right, yep.
Okay. What was your seed going into the playoffs?
Well, so we kind of, to go back to what I said, like my brother never lost a region game, and my junior year, our region changed a little bit. Roy came into our region, and they were phenomenal the last 2 years. And we were playing them for the region championship at home. It's our homecoming night. We just barely got on a new field. We hadn't been able to play at home earlier in the year. And so it was like the pinnacle of my high school career up to that point. And we're playing them, and I have the worst game of my life. And I threw 4 interceptions, and it crushed me. Like I remember that night, like I went and drove for like 2 hours and just like didn't talk to anyone. And it like kind of, that was really the turning point for me in high school. And we went into the playoffs as the 10th seed, and like, I like lit a fire in me for the rest of my high school career of just, I never wanted to feel that feeling again. And we were the 10th seed. We went on a very magical run in the playoffs, upsetting teams. We in the quarterfinals, we were playing the number 2 team in the state, and we beat them with a walk-off 2-point conversion in overtime, and won with a game-winning touchdown pass in the semifinal game. And it was the first time our high school had made it to Rice-Eccles for the semis in 20 years. So it was so magical. But we just weren't able to get it done. But it was awesome.
Okay. So you lose in the state championship. The game was pretty close, right?
Yeah, we lost by 8.
Okay. So a pretty close game. How, I guess, was the feeling afterwards? At what point did you rally the troops, like that night, that spring, or did your team kind of come together that next off season to when you guys said, hey, we know what our potential is. These are the things that we need to do to get there. Kind of when did that happen, and what was it a process? Was there one moment where you feel like the team changed, or did it kind of happen over time?
Well, I think we knew we had a lot of guys returning my senior year, and it stung so bad after losing the state championship. But at the same time, we were just on to the, like, I remember the week after we lost the state championship, my basketball season started like immediately, and we had to go down to Timpview, the team we lost to, and play them in basketball. And the whole game, their whole student section was just taunting me, and they were just like, "Where's your ring?" Like, and I remember telling my dad on the way home, I am gonna get them back. Like which I never actually got to play them again, but we did win state the next year. But I also remember giving our starting center Brian Bushman, after our season had ended, and I gave him this big hug, and I remember telling him, and I was like, "Look, like I never want to feel this way again. Like we are going to go out on top." And I think everyone knew that. And it was honestly like, who knows if we'd won that game my junior year, if we would have been able to do what we did my senior year, but I wouldn't change what we went through for anything. Just like that hunger and that whole off season, it was like, we knew that we had a huge target on our backs having gone that far, but we knew we had so much unfinished business. And so like we had such a big chip on our shoulder because we knew people thought we weren't gonna be able to make it back. We had some key players that we lost that were phenomenal athletes, and they were all like, okay, like that was Bountiful's chance. But that drove me insane. Like I remember just being so fired up, like just like, man, like you have no idea, like we're coming. And but it took time. Like it was definitely at the beginning of the year, like we were not thinking state championship. We were thinking we have to just have a great week of practice, a great day of practice, great week, stack that on top and beat this team week 1 and week 2 and progress from there.
I love what you said. I saw a video from Coach Rack the other day with the Savannah Bananas, the baseball league.
Yeah.
And he's like, make adversity into workout fuel. And I loved it. Like if you have an error on the field, it's not a mistake, workout fuel. If you strike out, it's okay. Use that as workout fuel and use that adversity. That's really what creates that passion, that hunger, that drive. Of course, you don't want to lose all the time. You don't want too much adversity because it can bring a team down, but getting pieces of it, I think how people respond to adversity is absolutely crucial. And I love that you had taken that. I do want to pull up one clip because it is one of my favorite and a little bit younger. So you missed the glory days of Tim Tebow, but I imagine when you guys lost, you kind of came back into that next year. This is a quick clip from him where, again, he had a phenomenal college career, rarely lost any games, but they did lose. This was his response at the press conference. It kind of reminds me of what you just said. So I'll go ahead and play that here now. And you obviously know who he is, right?
Yes,
a little young.
Of course.
Okay, so you still know who Tim Tebow is, but let's get this playing.
I'm sorry. Extremely sorry. We were hoping for an undefeated season. That was my goal. Something Florida's never done here. But I promise you one thing. A lot of good will come out of this. You have never seen any player in the entire country play as hard as I will play the rest of the season, and you never see someone push the rest of the team as hard as I will push everybody the rest of the season. And you never see a team play harder than we will the rest of the season. God bless.
I love how he comes out and he just has that comment, and that's it. He says, and I love what he said, no team will train as hard as our team will train. So you being the quarterback, I'm assuming you're in a leadership position. You started the year prior. You're a great athlete. You're on the basketball team. So I guess how did you adapt as a leader from your junior to your senior year that helped you motivate the team and keep the team motivated even when things weren't going well?
Yeah, I had the privilege to be a captain my junior year, and I was able to work really closely I was the only junior captain on the team and was working with the seniors. And transitioning to my senior year, there was a heavy load my junior year on my shoulders, but also especially going into my senior year, I knew like all eyes were going to be on me, and for better or worse. And that with that comes great responsibility. And like if I wasn't the first guy, if I wasn't pushing myself harder than anyone in conditioning and the stuff no one wants to do, then how would I expect anyone to want to follow me and really work hard as well? And so that was, I think, the biggest thing for me is just setting the tone in the off season, that I'm here for all the dirty work. I'm gonna be the first one in, the last one out, and And I really like the stuff from Tim Tebow. Like, I don't remember all the wins from my high school career, but I remember every single loss.
Yeah.
And I think I remember in detail every single game we lost, and kind of just keeping those in the back of your mind, like moving on, but remembering that feeling through the off season, because you go a long time without playing football games, and keeping your teammates on that same page as you, and just building those relationships that are going to really withstand when things get hard down the season, and you can really push each other. And I think the key, like, it's so important to be close to your teammates, because when you get into the trenches, like, you need to be able to kind of get on them and hold them accountable without it being personal, where it's not like it comes out of a place of love and respect, and they're not going to be like, oh man, like who does he think he is? You know,
This guy.
Yeah, exactly. So
I think that's a really good point. I think that's one of the things, I think peer leadership especially is very difficult, especially in high school. And you're not around the coaches quite as much. It's not quite as a controlled environment. Whereas when you're playing college, it's a little more controlled. So let's take us through your state championship game. So what was your record going into the state championship?
we were 13-1.
Okay.
Or 12-1.
So you did have one loss prior to that.
We did. Early in the year, we lost.
Okay, which is probably
In
good
overtime.
for the team.
Yeah, it was just like we said, just like the other games, it was just like the other ones, where really, really stung, but it was a turning point for sure.
Okay. And then state championship, you won. And what was the score of that game, and what was kind of the highlight of that game for you?
We won 42-35 and against Roy, and it was very. We played them earlier in the year, and we were their only loss. They were undefeated until they played us earlier in the year, and kind of like what I'd mentioned earlier, I had a really hard experience against Roy the year earlier, my junior year, and so I'd been waiting to play them my whole year, and I'd been so excited to play them and just worked so hard and so focused. And my senior year, the first time we played them, I had 6 touchdowns and 0 picks, and it just was like such a pinnacle. But then in the playoffs, we had to play them again, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I thought I've overcome Roy. I thought I'd put them behind me, and it's like now they're coming and they want us bad because we just beat them and they get their second chance, and it's really hard to beat a good team twice.
Very true.
And so I remember being really nervous going into and I usually wasn't very nervous my senior year. I was very confident and like ready to go every game, but I was really nervous for the state championship game because I knew what it was like to lose a state championship game, and if you lose the state championship game, it's cool, you made it a long run, but everyone forgets about it. Yeah. And I knew like this was my last chance to like bring a ring to Bountiful, or with my teammates, with all these guys I've grown up with. This is my last go at it. And so we were actually down at halftime. We were down by we're down by 7 or 10 at halftime. And I remember just feeling this feeling in my stomach, and it was just like, oh my gosh, like now or never. But my team, we were able to pull through. Our offensive line had a phenomenal game that game, and our defense played really well. And we actually beat them the same score both times we played them. We beat them 42-35 in the state championship, and like a month earlier when we played them in the regular season.
That's really cool.
But,
okay, so you're a state champion. You're a great athlete. Now let's walk through kind of the decision of how you got to where you want to play college football. So what was the recruiting process like? So when I was recruited 20 plus years ago, very different. You didn't have the NAL deals. You didn't have the transfer portal. You barely had the internet, to be honest, Mm-hmm. So what was the recruiting process like as you went through that?
Yeah, I was definitely like, people get recruited so early nowadays, and I was 6'2", 140 pounds as a sophomore, and so I gained 50 pounds between my junior and senior years, and to really become more athletic. And I wasn't a very good runner. I really worked on like the weak areas of my game before my senior year and my junior year as well. And so after my junior season, I felt I'd had a really good year. I went to a lot of camps, and I had this big chip on my shoulder. Like I know I could compete with anyone. And I got my first offer to Southern Utah, and it was such a great moment for me. But the rest of my senior year, it was kind of a weird year because there were roster cuts this year. So all the NCAA had to cut all their rosters to 105. Oh. So they had to take 40 kids off every team. And so there were so few spots at the Division I level.
Interesting.
And so it was a really weird recruiting year. And there was a lot of staff changes in Utah between Utah State and the University of Utah on the offensive side. And I had So it was a weird, and so like the whole year I just told my coaches and stuff, I was like, I'm not worried about recruiting right now. Like I know I can play at the highest level, but all I'm worrying about is just winning a state championship, and it will take care of itself after that. And I think that's the way you have to go about it, because like if you're always thinking about the next step, then you're going to miss what you're in. And high school football is such a magical moment. And so I'm really grateful for how that, when I was late to get recruited. I got offered by BYU in December after the state championship game. And then Utah State offered me in January.
Okay. Had you already committed to the Y at that point?
I'd committed to BYU, but I hadn't signed. And so like, even though you commit, teams can still recruit you.
Yeah.
And so I had some really good conversations with Bronco Mendenhall and his staff, and I have nothing but great things to say about them. I'm a huge fan of Bronco. Since I was growing up, when he was coaching at BYU, I've read his biography and everything, and I really like Bronco Mendenhall. But that being said, I could have, if I went to Utah State, in the back of my mind, I always would have been like, man, like, I wish I would have gone to BYU. Like that was my dream since I was little.
Okay.
And if like BYU is a more competitive, and to some extents, but if I'm not the one believing in myself, then who else is going to? Like I need to be the biggest believer in myself, and have confidence and bet on myself. And so I went to BYU.
Okay, and you're there now. I think that's a good thing to highlight is, I think with the transfer portal especially, and you've heard a lot of coaches saying at these bigger schools, we are not going to recruit freshman players. We're not going to recruit very many freshmen because we could take a risk on an 18-year-old kid, or we can allow them to go to a smaller school, develop there, and then we'll see how they pan out when they're 20 years old, 21 years old, so we can get more developed kids that are stronger, maybe a little bit faster. So I think that's a different change. Like for me, when I was getting recruited, you got recruited and you were going to be at that school for the next 4 years. You could transfer, but you had to sit out a year, and just it wasn't very common, and coaches kind of looked down upon it. So I think I'll be interesting to see how this pans out for you. Now this year you plan to redshirt, correct?
Yeah, planning to redshirt, like you have to be ready to play. Like in my mentality this fall is not to redshirt. It's to any opportunity I'm given, I'm going to take with a full head of steam and work as hard as I can. And even though I'm going on a mission in January, it's how good can I be in the next 6 months before I leave? And football is a next man up game, and you have to be ready for whatever opportunity you're given, and that could be on the field, or it could be at practice, or wherever it may be. And so I'm just gonna, whatever the team needs me to do this fall, I'm gonna do, and just give it my very all, and try and just make the most of this time I have at BYU before I leave on my mission. That's
great. I think you have the opportunity to learn a lot while you're down there. So let's kind of talk about that. Let's do strength and let's do plyos. What is maybe 1 or 2 exercises that they have you doing down there, or something that's really helped your strength that you weren't doing back in high school?
That's a good question. There's so many random things that I've learned, but we did a really good job with our training in high school. We did a good job. But yeah, I think just so much more, just like not quite as like, we lift heavy. Don't get me wrong, but it's a lot of like smart maintenance stuff and trying to make sure you're being smart, like making sure it's functional and preventing injuries, and just a lot of random things to protect your knees and your joints. And I don't know, it's hard to name one specific exercise, but lots of jumping stuff. And
yeah, how about from a plow? So that's one thing. In strength, we kind of do the same thing. We did squats, we did power cleans a little bit in high school, although our form was not always the best. I got much improved form as I got more into that college and then the Olympic level. But one thing I did not do a lot of was plyometrics. We did not do a lot of jumps and hurdle hops. So what are some things, and it can be a plyometric or a speed type of thing you've done there, but what's an exercise or what's a drill that you think has helped improve your explosiveness? Well,
what's so cool is it's so integrated into every day. And so when we go out and we do our running every day, we do a very extensive 30-minute warm-up but including in that warm-up is so many variations of plyo and working on depth, like jumping and landing and how to explode off of different out of different stances, and being able to run around curves and get your body leaning correctly, and just really connecting your agility training to the game of football and making sure it's transferable. And so it's just it's incorporated with everything we do. Nothing we do, the strength staff does such a phenomenal job of, nothing we do is without a purpose and doesn't translate to to some extent to the game of football.
Okay. And what has surprised you the most, I guess, about going from that high school level to that college level? I guess whether it's the coaching staff, whether it's just the access to the weight room, whether it's the food, it's sports psych, what's kind of the one thing that stands out the most that you weren't anticipating or has been the biggest, surprise for you?
I think just, there's a lot of things that are different, but I expected it to be more intense, to be another level, but at the same time, I think it's cool to see all these players, like they're just normal guys. Like they're guys that have worked really hard to be where they're at, and they've stuck to these they've trusted in what the coaches have taught, and I think getting to really know these players and seeing how good examples they are and learn from them has been amazing, and just really being able to connect with them, and football is such a team game, and really being able to build those relationships has been amazing. And I just love learning from them. And because they're just like everyone's just a kid from trying to push themselves and be great. But
that's awesome. And so one piece of advice I want to give you before my last two questions. I saw this quote the other day. So I went to high school in Boston. So I'm a big Tom Brady fan.
Yeah.
I think he's been very successful. If it's okay, I just want to play a clip with you because obviously you're walking in as a freshman. Mm-hmm. You're likely not going to start, although there's we're not going to get into the quarterback depth chart right now down there at the Y. But as you get back from your mission, as you kind of work your way up the depth chart, again, we have all the hopes in the world that you'll be extremely successful. So I just want to share kind of a clip from Tom Brady that talks about his progression as a backup and how he became a starter on his team. And I think it's a good mindset mentality to have.
Guys ahead of me were getting more opportunity than I was. There was a certain amount of repetitions in practice. The starter would get 20, the backup would get 10, and I would get 2. And I'd go in and I'd say, well, how can I ever get better? All these guys get all the reps and I only get 2. And he said, just go in there and focus with the 2 that you got and make them as perfect as you possibly can. So I said, okay. So that's what I did. They'd put me in for those 2. Man, I'd sprint in there like it was Super Bowl 49. Let's go, boys. Here we go. What play we got? And I did really well with those 2 because I brought enthusiasm. I brought some energy, and I had a little more confidence in myself. And it went from 2 reps to getting 4 reps because those 2 were pretty good. Then I had 4 good reps. Then I got 10 good reps. And before you knew it, through this new attitude, through this new shift that Greg had said to me, focus on what you can control. Focus on what you're getting, not what anyone else is getting. Whenever you get an opportunity, you take advantage of it. You treat it like it's the Super Bowl. You treat it like it's game day. Go out there and treat practice like no one else does. And I did that every single day.
So I just want to share something that I love, his mentality, because again, coaching, even whether it's on the bobsled team or with youth sports, have kids all the time that say, oh, I'm just a backup. I just do this, or I can't do that. How can I get better if he plays more than me? Mm-hmm. And I use that all the time. Like, well, when you get the opportunity to play, you typically don't. But when you do, I want you to go in there and actually try. I want you to give it your all. And I think it's easy to get buried on a depth chart. It's easy to kind of be the backup and easy to kind of get down saying, I'm not getting opportunities. Why? But I love what he says there. I changed his attitude and changed what he can control, which is when I go in there, can I do the best that I can? Can I be prepared? Can I read and know the playbook like I am supposed to? There's a lot that you can do even as you work your way up the depth chart here these next couple years. I just wanted to play that for you because I absolutely love what he has to say there.
Yeah, it's great. I think a lot of people will complain about not having opportunities, but maybe your opportunities aren't on the field, but everyone gets opportunities somewhere. Yep. And it starts at, like Tom Brady said, it may just be something simple, a few reps, but are you really seizing those chances when they come? Because they will come, and you don't know when they will come, but you have to be ready for them. And I think also, like what you said, just like for me, like the biggest thing like right now is like controlling all the controllables. Like, am I studying as much as I can? Am I being the best at recovering? Am I taking care of my body? Am I doing those little things like getting to bed early and that people might overlook that are so important? And you're trying to find every competitive advantage you can to exceed and help to excel and help your team. Yeah. And do what your team needs you to do.
I love that. So the last 2 questions I normally ask in the podcast is, who was the most impactful coach you had, and what is one lesson that they taught you?
Yeah, my head coach for football, Coach Freckleton, Coach Freck, I was able to develop a very close relationship with him the last few years. I spent a lot of time with him, and I think the biggest lesson from him would just be the way you carry yourself and playing with class and character, and not letting the game define you as a human being. And he always would talk to us about how his success, how he measures success on our team would not be how we finished that year, but in 20 years you could ask him that question, and then he'll know how much he was able to help us and impact us. And so I was able to really grow close with him and learn so much from him. And I mean, every Friday we'd work so hard during the week to prepare, and then we'd go to war. And I will always remember and cherish those memories.
That's awesome. The other question is, and this is really not that far removed for you, is what is a piece of advice or maybe a trait you wish you would have spent more time on in high school, or some advice that you have for kids out there right now that are 10, 12, 14 years old, trying to find their way through high school sports, trying to develop into the next you?
Yeah, for me, I mean, there's a lot of things I was able to learn, and I think patience is huge. From like an athletic perspective, and the biggest thing for me that really changed and I think helped me the most was the mental side of things. Especially playing quarterback, going into my senior year, I spent so much time my junior year studying and working hard, but I would sometimes be a little too much on the field. And I started doing lots of like deep breathing before games. And I really kind of I read a book on like the mental game for golfers. And that summer before my senior year, and about getting your mind into a flow state where you're not thinking and you're just kind of reacting and trusting the muscle memory you've built that week through focused, deliberate practice. And I think that was huge, just kind of taking the emotions out of the game and being level-headed and calm for me as a quarterback was a game changer for me.
And that's a very good point. I think it's so easy to get caught up in the emotion of sports. And I think it's hard that's why I say sports teaches you how to emotionally regulate. I think that's one of a huge lesson. I don't think athletes understand how important that mental part of the game is and the impact it will have on them. If they can begin to develop that at a younger age, it'll pay forward as they get into their last couple years of high school. And then hopefully they have a chance to move on and do college sports, and then go pro or go to the Olympic movement. So that's very cool. Well, do you have anything else you want to say or anything else you want to do?
No, I'm great. It's been great being here.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Again, this is Emerson, Utah State Athlete of the Year 2025, currently playing at BYU, and we look forward to seeing the great things that he does on and off the field. Thank you.